Greetings, chess players, and welcome back to the Daily Chess Musings free online summer chess camp. Today we are being joined by, let me check my windows, good. We are being joined by FIDE Master Kevin Pan. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Kevin, before we get going in your game, you co-founded an organization that a bunch of the people who watch this channel have heard about, Mission 360. Go ahead, tell us about Mission 360, and don't be modest.
Yeah, so the goal of Mission 360 as a whole is to promote chess in all levels, like higher level chess and also like grassroots chess in Northern California. So some events that we've held, so specifically, there hasn't been that many high-level events that much anymore in Northern California. So we've tried to hold many norm tournaments. So I think we've held like 3 or 4 already. So IM norm, GM norm tournaments. Along with that, we also plan to hold our own chess summer camps to teach like beginners and people of all levels. And apart from chess, we also teach machine learning, like programming. So you can check us out on our website, mission360foryou.org, and you can see all the events and what we've done so far on that website.
So mission360foryou.org. And do you know the dates of your summer camp?
So our first session actually is going to start on this Thursday.
This Thursday. Okay. So you can go check that out and maybe get registered. And also have some lessons with Kevin Pan and Eric Lee, right? He's helping you with these camps as well. Awesome. And yeah, those IMGM Norm tournaments, those were very exciting. Anybody who wants to can go check out the video history. I've done a lot of coverage of these tournaments, and there was a lot of exciting chess. In fact, in one of the games, I think it was one with Eric Lee, White was forced to do a bishop and knight checkmate under time pressure, and did it successfully. Just very, very exciting chess. Everybody's fighting for wins in these norm tournaments, because they want to get their titles, right, Kevin?
Yeah, definitely.
So there's not a lot of quick draws. I mean, there's some, but it's at a much lower rate than a lot of other high-level tournaments. Very exciting stuff. All right, so you have sent me a game where you are playing Ganesh, and tell me about this game. It's from the 2019 Junior High School K-9 National Championships. What's going on?
Yeah, so I think this was 3 years ago, so 7th grade nationals, like round 5. Yeah, so I just wanted to share the game because I think it's pretty instructive and also has a lot of fireworks in it. So
super.
Yeah,
it's that time of year to get ready for fireworks. We might as well start with your game. All right, so I'll go ahead and make the first move, and you lead us through. I'll go ahead and click as you're talking.
Yeah, okay, so e4, c5, and knight c3. So knight c6, then g3. I think we should start here.
Okay, so knight c3 is a little unusual right off the bat. What are you doing with knight c3?
Yeah, so when I first started, I remember I played like the mainline Sicilian, which is e4, c5, knight f3, d4. But then as time goes on, I decided to like diversify my opening repertoire a little bit. So I went to start playing the Grand Prix, or more specifically the closed Sicilian, which I think gives White pretty good chances to like both positionally like beat your opponent and also tactically, as you'll see. So yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fun stuff. The closed Sicilian, knight comes out c3. You're going to be fianchettoing. It's similar to a kind of a King's Indian attack, right?
Yes.
Okay. So knight c6.
Knight c6, g3, as you were saying, like the fianchetto. and then bishop g2, bishop g7. So both sides fianchettoing their bishops. All right, and then d3.
And that's why
E6.
it's a closed Sicilian, because the d pawn's not being exchanged for the c pawn. Then e6.
Yep. e6, and then here there's like two main choices. You can go knight g e2 or bishop e3. I think it's just really just a matter of preference. It's just like move order. So here I go for bishop e3.
Okay.
Because, you know, like the key idea is in the opening you should always be developing the threats. So that was the idea, threatening to take on c5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good tip. Yeah. So bishop e3. So he defends with knight d4. So he jumps his knight to d4. So this knight on d4 is actually a little annoying because it controls a lot of squares, and also like the normal way of developing, right, knight g e2, you can't easily take on d4 because black is more than happy to just plant his pawn on d4 and take away a lot of your space. And also if you play knight g e2, you also have to worry about like if you just take with the knight on d4, right? If the pawn takes back, you're also running into this fork. So
yeah.
the only way to really take is with the bishop, which is not good because you want your bishop.
Sure.
Yeah, so we need to find another way to deal with this knight. So, yeah, so this is a kind of a known idea in the closed Sicilian. If we make a few moves, queen d2,
Okay.
knight e7, and then here I go for knight d1. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So it looks a little strange at first look, right? Because, okay, why would you be bringing your knight back so early in the opening? But as I mentioned before, this is like the reliable way of getting rid of the knight. So knight d1, freeing up the c3 square for the pawn.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. Gonna kick that knight out of there with c3. And then black plays d6.
Yeah, so black has to be a little bit worried about c3 because after the knight moves, the c5 pawn would be hanging. So he plays d6 to defend c5. And then just c3, knight back to c6.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now we kind of have to wonder, okay, we need to somehow fix our knight on d1, right? So what are the possible squares that I can go to? So there's really only one main square, which is e3. So we should keep that in mind for the rest of the game.
Because your bishop's obviously occupying e3.
Yeah.
But you've got your queen and bishop on this nice battery. So you likely could end up exchanging it for your opponent's fianchettoed bishop, right?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay.
Okay, so knight e2, just more normal development. Queen a5, and here, in my opinion, I think black was a little too slow in his in his moves, right? Because he already played knight d4 and knight c6, and also this queen a5 move. It doesn't like directly accomplish much, right? I mean, the opening. Like generally, if you're running into like an opening that you don't really know how to play against, you should be like decisive. So, yeah, maybe queen a5 was not the best move here. It's a little too slow, but.
What do you think he could have played instead of queen a5?
Yeah, so generally, as a close Sicilian player, I don't like. It's quite uncomfortable when the opponent goes for d5. In this position itself, it wouldn't be possible because c5 is hanging.
Sure.
So maybe black plays b6 and then plays d5.
Okay, so b6, and that does two things. It opens some squares for the c8 bishop, but defends c5 so he can play pawn d5. Okay, good suggestion. And black queen goes to a5.
Yeah. And then here we execute the idea you mentioned earlier, bishop h6. So, like two purposes, right? This battery on d2 queen and e3 bishop, it's a pretty common idea playing bishop h6 and getting rid of their fianchetto bishop. But along with this, we accomplished, like you said earlier, the knight can now go to e3.
Cool.
Yeah, so black castles. Take.
And then you go ahead and take, and they take. And now the there's some weak points around the black king because you've gotten rid of the fianchetto bishop. In fact, that was really easy to do, right? Sometimes it's harder to get rid of a fianchetto bishop. This very, very easy. Is that usually the case in the closed Sicilian?
Not really. Most of the time, like if you play bishop h6, they won't let you like get such a like comfortable position like this one. There's a trick, which it might be a little difficult to show, but sometimes there's a trick where if you're not careful, your queen might be trapped on h6 after take.
Ah.
Yeah. It's like it's kind of hard to describe.
Well,
here,
you know what?
basically the
After
idea-
this game, you can yeah, we'll look at that trick real fast. Let me make a note to remind myself, because that seems like a really, you know, I love checkmating queens early, and on h6 is not a common place to trap a queen. Usually, it's like after they've taken your rook or something. So queen h6 trap. We'll look at it right after this game, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So king takes g7.
Yeah, king takes g7, and then like we said earlier, just bringing the knight out to e3.
Mm-hmm.
And then here, black plays rook b8, which again I think is a little too slow, but at this point it's not that easy to play for black.
So he's looking to expand on the queen side with pawn to b5.
Yes.
Okay.
So b5, b4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then here, so now like the position is looking pretty good for white, right?
Sure it is.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, the two knights and the queen. Like in a few moves, they can easily start going to like g4, f4.
Mm-hmm.
So black's king is not looking that that safe there. So how do we exploit this? I decided to go for h4.
Wow. So you're going with some brute force, pawn storm, and this is nice because if you look ahead, Kevin was talking about where the knights can go, but also check out the queen and rook. They're potentially connecting on h6. If that h-pawn's out of the way. And again, this is because Kevin already got rid of black's fianchettoed bishop. Okay.
Yep.
So your opponent does a slow developing move, bishop d7.
Yeah, bishop d7, and then just continue pushing h5. So the goal is just to get the rook into the game, so another extra piece. All right.
And then
so
black plays f5. Now that's a little surprising.
yeah. So at this point, I think black realized that he has to like act fast because otherwise, the white's pieces are just gonna come rolling down the board, and then the game will end soon. So yeah, I think f5 is a good move because again, it takes away the g4 square from the knight, and also a lot of times the rook can help in defense, like maybe rook f6 to cover h6.
Ah.
So yeah.
Now that's
so-
a hidden a hidden detail that's quite important. That was I saw that, yeah, obviously the pawn's taking away the g4 square from the knight, but this idea of moving the rook to f6 to help defend against this pawn storm, that's a very good strategy. All right, so you play hx g6 and hx g6.
Yeah. And then here, again, I just want to activate the most amount of pieces as possible. So right now, like in the closest alien, the bishop is hitting this pawn. So let's take it and like open up that bishop for other possibilities.
Okay. Opening up the bishop, ex f5, ex f5. And go ahead, call out the moves, Kevin.
Yeah, so ex f5, ex f5. And now if we take a look at this position, right? Black's pawn structure is not the best because, like, if you just take a look at the position, there's a lot of holes, like c4, d5, e6. Just perfect for, like, the two knights to exploit. Like, for example, knight f4 can come soon.
Yep.
And from here, like, you're pressuring the e6 square, also the d5 square. So, yeah, the pawn structure is just not the best for black. Yeah, but then here we can actually, like, create some decisive play here. So the point is we want our knight, sorry, not our knight. We want our queen to get to h6, right? Like you mentioned, the queen e2 and h1. But there's a knight in a way. But we can actually move the knight away in a tempo. So the next move, knight c4.
Nice. So you're threatening d6 and you're threatening h6.
Yeah. So three things being like threatened right now: the d6 pawn, the a5 queen.
Oh, the
and also
a5
this
queen. Thank you
d6.
for pointing that out.
Yeah.
It's just hanging out on the side of the board. And it's getting threatened over there too. Yeah, so I mean, what do you do as black here? You're in trouble. You're in trouble for
Yeah.
sure. So you got to save the queen and maybe save d6, right? But yeah, you're going to save the king, and your king's going to be under fire. All right. So queen c7 is what they play.
Yeah, and then, like we said, queen h6, and then black has to go king f6. So here I remember being like, okay, the position is good, but I remember being a little bit frustrated because there's not really, like, as bad as black's position looks, there's not really like that easy of a direct win. Because, yeah, if you look at it, it's not that easy to check the king anymore. Like, you can move the queen to h4, but the king will just go back, and like you don't want to repeat. So yeah, it's definitely not easy. But here I just thought, okay, if I'm not sure of how to like proceed, I'll just develop more pieces. So knight f4.
Okay, so knight f4.
Knight f4. Just, yeah, we have both knights like gearing up, and then black plays rook h8.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, generally, I would say like 2 rooks are better than a queen, right? 5 plus 5 is greater than 9. But in this case, it'd be a little bit of a waste to, you know, trade off the queen, because the queen is like the major attacking piece here. So I didn't want to go through this trade. So I had to think of other options. But there's really only one. If you want to avoid trading the queen with the 2 rooks, there's really only one option, because as of now, the queen is actually trapped. So we have to play this in-between move, knight h5, check.
And it's a very nice one, knight h5.
Right, knight h5. And here, black is forced to play king e6, so this king goes even further into the center.
And it's because he can't play king f7 because of queen g7, right?
Yeah, so if king f7, queen g7, and if you do some calculation, if the king goes to e8, then the rook is hanging.
Yep.
And if the king goes back to e6, now we can play queen f6 checkmate.
Yep, and that, yeah, so go into e6. And
right, and then here is another interesting, I think this is like the best move of the game. So again, the point is that, like, okay, if we move our queen somewhere, our knight would be hanging. If we move our queen with check, like queen to e3, for example, the king is going to escape to f7. So again, we need to make, ideally, we need to make a check. So yeah, so here I went for this move, bishop to d5 check.
Wow. Wow. You're sacking the bishop, not even getting any material from it immediately. And if it doesn't work, you're going to be down material, and you still may have to trade your queen for 2 rooks or something. So this is really gutsy. Did you spend a lot of time calculating this at the chessboard?
Yes, I remember. Yeah, I was pretty low on time the whole game because there's like a lot of things going on. So yeah.
And now, when you were calculating it, you know, bishop d5 is quite an impressive move. Did you? So, first of all, the king could take, and black's knight could take, right?
Yeah.
So there's a couple choices, and how far ahead did you see? Did you know when you did your calculations how much risk was involved for you?
Yeah. So bishop d5, right? There's only two candidates afterwards, so there's not too much to calculate. But like once I play bishop d5, I calculated a line like which happens in the game. Basically, I'm just securing like I'm securing my queen and basically all my pieces. So I would win the pawn at g6. So once I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna play it because it's too good of a move to pass up. Like, there's no way I'm not playing this move.
Sure,
So,
because once you get that pawn on g6, that king is in a ton of open space, and you've got a
yeah,
queen and 2 knights in the vicinity, so you should be able to. But yeah, there was some risk, but it was too good of an idea to resist. And I mention this because, in particular, one of my students who's doing quite well was at the National Open and gained another 100 rating points or something. But there were a couple positions where the student agreed to a draw, where they could have there were some moves that were too good to resist, but they resisted them because it was against a higher rated opponent. But you got to believe in yourself, right, Kevin?
yeah,
Okay, so queen takes g6, check.
yeah. So just one thing I want to point out real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is just like, I think it's a pretty funny checkmate. So bishop d5, right? If he took with the queen, if he took with the king, sorry.
Okay.
There's this checkmate knight f4, which I thought I just wanted to show.
Oh,
Because it looks
that
pretty
is
funny.
pretty.
Yeah.
That is really pretty. And then of course if he plays that's his only other move, right? So really, yeah, if he sees that, then he's just got one possible move, and that's the
Yeah.
knight. Which once the knight takes the bishop, then nothing's defending g6. His king's in all this open space, and you've got 2 knights and a queen just swarming around a king on an open plain. Not a pleasant place to be if you're black. And it's interesting because the closed Sicilian is not known. It's a closed opening, right?
Yeah.
But boy, it can really get spicy. All right, so king goes to e7.
Yeah, so I just repeat like a few moves here. So queen g7, king e6, queen g6, and then king e7 again.
Mm-hmm. And it's okay to
Right.
repeat some moves so you don't use a bunch of clock time while you're
Yep.
calculating, right?
Yep. All right, so here, like, okay, black's king is in danger, but white's still down a minor piece, right? So we need to somehow win that back. So the major square that I want to access with my queen is this f6 square, because, like, if we imagine the knight is gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we play queen f6, then the king has to go to e8, and then the rook is hanging. So that's what I
Yeah.
want to target. So that was kind of like my thought process. So, like, how do we get rid of this knight on d5? So the move I thought was knight e3. So bringing the knight back to e3, attacking d5.
Removing the guard so that
Yep.
your queen can go to f6. So this is the second time we're trying to move the same particular knight to allow our attack to continue. All right, and your opponent doesn't make it easy. Plays
Yeah, so-
rook b to e8.
Yeah, so I just want to give props to my opponent. This is like I didn't expect this at all during the game, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like a completely crazy move, right? Because I just take on d5, it looks like I'm forking the king and the queen.
Yep.
But as you'll see, knight takes d5, which I have to play. And then he responds with king d8 check. So,
Yep.
Yeah, so just,
It was a very clever move.
yeah, definitely. So, right, so after knight d5, king d8, and king d2. So if we look at this position, material-wise, white's only up a pawn. But I would say like the white's piece activity definitely makes it so that like white's almost already winning here, because the two knights are, if we compare the two knights to black's two minor pieces, the bishop and the knight, you can like clearly see that the two white knights are much more dominant. Okay, so king d2, then queen a5.
Okay. Queen goes
And
to
after queen a5, there's a hanging pawn, so might as well take it.
Sure. And the queen needed to move, right? And queen b8 wasn't. Could your opponent have played queen b8 instead of queen a5 to defend that pawn?
Let's see. So if queen b8, I think my next move would have been knight h f6. Yeah. So threatening the rook on e8, obviously.
Sure.
And like once everything is traded, for example, like if he just lets me trade everything, I can take on d7 and then take on f5. So I win that pawn anyway. And also, like if he, for example, if he decides to trade on h1 with the rooks, I can even bring my rook to h7, which I'm sure is just completely winning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think his decision of giving up the pawn, it probably makes a little bit more sense because he gets a tiny bit of counterplay.
Okay. Yeah. So queen a5.
Right. So queen a5, queen d6. And then here was his idea, knight d4, not check, but knight d4.
Yeah, making use of that pin.
Yeah. And he has some threats here, like rook e2 check or knight f3 check. So you have to be a little careful. So here I just decide, okay, there's no point letting him like get all this activity, so I'm going to bring my knight back. So knight h f4.
Coming back, and that defends e2. And you play. You said knight h f4, correct?
Yes.
Good. And but he's still got the knight f3 check.
Yeah. So knight f3, it isn't too much of an issue without the rook e2 idea. Because before, like, maybe knight f3 check, like, without knight f4.
Yeah.
Maybe knight f3 check, king c2, then, like, rook e2.
Sure.
But here, the e2 square is covered, so if he plays knight f3,
it's just a
I can just play king c2.
Yeah, it's just a check. Okay, so he plays rook takes h1. And you play rook takes h1, of course.
And then knight b5.
Threatening the queen.
Yeah, so here's another like tactical sequence, like the final tactical sequence.
Oh wow, this is pretty.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thought process is like, I guess you just kind of have to see the tactic, kind of. But, I mean, I think queen c5 would also be good. You have to be a little bit worried that, okay, maybe after queen a2 you can do some checks on your king, but I'm sure it's probably still fine. But yeah, the next move, knight e6 check, is just more forcing.
This is what I call a puzzle-worthy position right here. This is just beautiful. Knight, because your queen's under attack. I love that aspect of it. You know, it's like white to move and play. Your queen's under attack. Queen takes c5 is kind of an easy choice, but knight e6, wow. Knight e6 check, and then the king's forced to go to c8, right?
Yeah, because if rook takes e6, we play rook h8 check.
Yep.
And the rook has to go back, and then we trade the rooks and play queen e7 checkmate. So that's why you can't do that.
Okay, so let me get back to where we were. Knight e6 check. King c8.
Yeah. And then we continue with the checks, knight e7 check.
Definitely not queen c7 because he's got a knight guarding it. So knight e7 check.
And then here, black's king has nowhere to go, so he's forced to trade off his rook for the knight. And after this, white's just up an exchange plus a lot more activity. So after b6, rook h8, black resigns.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. And I mean, honestly, we can just go ahead and look a couple more moves because I think you're gonna get him checkmated, all right? So black would have, if he didn't resign, he would have had to have played king b7. And then you obviously have queen takes d7. And then he's got either king a6, which then you have queen c8 checkmate. So he needs to play knight c7. But then you just play queen takes c7, right?
Yeah.
And then
And at this point, the rook and the knight is probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I thought maybe we had a faster checkmate. Let me look at the computer analysis real fast, see if we did, because it looked like for a second. So it likes queen takes d7 after knight c7. Oh, we in fact did rook b8 check after knight takes c7, then king takes, and then queen takes c7, king a8, and then of course queen c8 checkmate. So yeah, in fact, he resigned, I think, when there was a mate in 4. Super game, Kevin. That was awesome. I love the there were two well, there were several really great moments. Certainly the right before move 32 is a puzzle-worthy position right there. With the knight e6 check that you played.
Yep.
And then what was the other one that I really... There were so many. Let me back up real fast. That bishop d5, yeah. Right before 22 bishop d5. There were really two, at least two, that are just, puzzle-worthy positions in the same game. So that was round 5. How many rounds? Do you remember how many rounds were in this tournament?
Yeah, there were 7 rounds.
7 rounds. So you must have been feeling pretty good after this round 5, huh?
Yeah.
And what ended up happening in the final rounds, just out of curiosity?
If I remember correctly, I might have 6th round. I think I won, and last round I drew.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
And was that good enough for the national championship?
No. It was only, I think I placed like top 10 or maybe top 5.
Okay. Only top 5 at the nationals. All right. That was a beautiful game. Has that game been like printed in a magazine anywhere or anything to your knowledge?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so yeah, just a beautiful game. I am so glad that you chose us to kind of publicly release that then. Now, you had sent me another game. Let me go see if I can find... you sent it in Skype. And let's see. Was this the top game, the first game you sent? So I'll click the next one. And let me check my windows real fast. Always good to do that. Awesome. Looks like we are set to go with the second game. And okay, so you're playing Ricardo de Guzman, who if people are from outside of Northern California, they might not know that, for a good decade, Ricardo was just dominating chess tournaments, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he
well known.
He would do the tournament circuit, show up to a tournament, win the first prize, right? And then the next weekend, same thing. I mean, just traveling around Northern California, and in fact, sometimes Southern California, and just dominating. And you are white in this game. And tell us about the circumstances of this game.
Yeah, so unlike the other one I showed, this is just a practice game I played with him like around a year ago. But I wanted to show the game because, again, there's like continuing on the theme of like the last game. There's a lot of in-between moves which I think are like one of the type of like the coolest moves in chess.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, your knight check in the last one. It looked like there was going to be a forced queen trade. That was beautiful. All right, so let us get going. D4.
Yeah. So D4, D6,
Mm-hmm.
knight F3, C6, E4, bishop G4. So I know Ricardo. He likes playing these like, unorthodox openings like
Yeah.
C6, D6. Yeah, and many times it creates decisive results, which I guess is good. But yeah, all right. So bishop g4, knight c3.
Yeah, like I said, Kevin says it creates decisive results, and Ricardo won a lot. He took first place in a lot of tournaments. So yeah, knight c3, and then queen c7. So white is very classically placed right now. Has two pawns in the center, two knights on the usual squares, and black has an early queen on c7, no pawns in the center, and an undefended bishop on g4. So very, very unorthodox.
Yeah. So knight c3, queen c7, and then h3. So just kicking the bishop. And here he actually decides to trade on f3.
Okay.
Which, although it looks kind of strange, it actually is, like, I think it's pretty common in these types of positions, because black's idea is to try to like play e5, maybe like g6, bishop g7, and the his white bishop is not like too important. Like, it doesn't really have that much of a home in this types of positions.
Yeah.
So, and that's why he's trading it off. So he's kind of playing for the long
Yeah,
run.
it's interesting. You know, generally, you know, top level players tend to avoid trading their bishop early for a knight like this, unless there's some definite compensation. You know, I remember Edward Gufeld getting upset with a player during an analysis session who played a similar move. And he explained to them that the bishops were originally elephants, and the knights were originally horses. And what would you rather be on, an elephant or a horse in the battle? And the young man said, a horse. And he looked at him and just threw his hands up in disgust. It was really a funny moment. But yeah, you know, this was definitely, you know, long held wisdom is the yeah, don't trade your bishop for a knight early without some definite compensation. And here Ricardo does that. Queen takes f3, but he's playing quite unorthodox. And so you develop your queen to f3. You've got two pieces developed and two center pawns. So you must be feeling pretty good about your position right here.
Yeah, definitely.
And he plays knight d7. And as you said, you're expecting him to play g6 and fianchetto his bishop.
Yeah, so like g6, e5. Like, although black is not developed, his position is definitely solid. Like, it's not easy to crack at all. So he has time to like do a bunch of development, like, even though he's behind. So yeah. So knight d7, then bishop e3.
Okay.
Knight gf6. So this is just developing.
Sure.
Yeah, and then, you know, I decided I wanted to spice it up a little bit too, because I felt like in the long run of this position, black would eventually like solidify, and then it would definitely not be easy to get any chances. So I just thought, okay, might as well, let's play g4.
Okay, so g4 does a couple things, obviously. Now that pawn is one square away from bugging his knight on f6, but it also opens up the possibility for your bishop to go to g2, right?
Yeah.
And now this is an interesting point in the game. I think a lot of players would just castle queenside here, and then if black's not castled, try and advance their pawn to e5 to try and open up the center. But instead, you play g4, which is very, very aggressive. And let's see if he does in fact play g6. He does. So g5 is sitting on the table, right?
Yeah.
You can play that at your leisure. It's an option available to you, but you don't play it right away.
Yeah, because like generally I like waiting on like my options, you know, just like keeping the opponent on their heels, on their toes. So like and again, if I play g5 like immediately, which I think I do in a few moves anyway.
Mhm.
But like g5, black plays knight h5.
Yep.
And okay, the knights normally the knights on like the side files are not good, but
Mhm.
like in situations like this, it's not easy to get rid of the knight. Like maybe you can play bishop e2 and queen g2 and then trade it off.
Mhm.
But then black can always play like knight g7, and also e5 is coming soon. So yeah, I think g5 is just a little bit of an overextension, like right now. But
So you chose development, um, which is almost always a good choice. And now you're one step away from castling and unifying your rooks. You've got 2 pawns in the center, 4 pieces in the game. You've got space, time, and force on your side. And let's see what Ricardo does. E5. So it seems like that push favors you because you have more development, more force. If things open up, it seems like it favors you, right?
yeah, at first glance, yes, but like if I take on e5 right now, like the issue is that okay, there's like there's a lot of open files and like maybe open diagonals, so it looks like it would favor me, but in the long run, he would definitely be better in my opinion because if we compare the minor pieces, right, 2 knights versus the knight and the dark squared bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we look at our light squared bishop, kind of like the close Sicilian, like sometimes this bishop can be a little weak because it's hitting straight into a pawn.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I wanted to avoid this type of position.
Okay. Plus, then you're leaving tension in the middle. So there's that capture is still on the table, and also the pawn g5 is still on the table, right? So you're keeping your options as you put it a moment ago. You like to keep your options to keep your opponent on their toes, not knowing what you're gonna do. And let's see, what do you do here, Kevin?
So yeah, now I decide to play g5.
Okay, so the pawn advances to g5, and then knight h5 as predicted. And again, that knight may be on the rim, but it kind of puts a stop to your pawn storm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like here is another like moment, right? Sometimes you want to keep like the pawns under tension like this, where they're like constantly hitting each other. But at this point, I think I didn't want to do that because okay, let's say I just castle queenside, right?
Okay.
I think I was worried, like because okay, like I explained before, right? You don't directly want to take because then your bishop would just be stuck there forever. So let's see. Like black would probably just play like bishop g7.
Which is really good because their bishop is on the big diagonal that's under contention right now.
Yeah.
And you can't do that maneuver anymore with the queen g2, bishop f3 to target the knight. So the knight doesn't need to retreat to g7 at all. So it's okay that the bishop's there. I mean, the black's knight has no safe square to go to, but also no way of being threatened. Yeah. So instead of castling queenside, what do you do?
So, like because I wanted to avoid this type of like position where the pawns are constantly attacking, I played d5.
Okay.
Yeah. So d5. The point is that if he takes, like maybe, yeah, I think I can take on d5 with a knight actually. If queen c2, then rook c1, and then knight c7.
So if pawn takes, knight goes to d5, and then where's his queen going?
So if queen takes c2, because it's
queen takes c2. Okay.
Yeah. So I have this idea: rook c1. And then let's say queen b2, then knight c7, and then I win the rook. So.
Nice. Yeah, that's a winning idea for sure.
Yeah. So that. Yeah, so you can't take on d5. So
So he plays bishop g7. He develops.
mhm.
But yeah, now that bishop is stuck behind its pawn, just like your bishop is stuck behind its own center pawn. So it's just moving the bishop out of the back rank, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so now just castle castle.
Castle.
So finally,
And he castles kingside. So you two are castled on opposite sides.
yep.
And it looks like your pawn, oftentimes when we're castled on opposite sides, we do these famous pawn storms. Each side uses pawns to storm the king on the other side of the board. But you already advanced your g pawn, and your h pawn is stopped because of his knight. Um, so were you a little concerned at this point that his pawn storm could be more effective than yours? Because yours is pretty much stopped?
Yeah, definitely. So that was kind of my thought process because, like you said, the knight on h5, it's not easy to get it out of the way, and um, like my pawn storm is not going to be that effective because, like the knight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my thought process is okay. If this doesn't work, I have to think of something else. So I tried to go for a different type of plan.
Okay.
Um,
Let's see.
yeah. So mhm.
Go ahead, call out the moves.
Yeah. So queen e2,
And that
a5.
and queen e2. Interesting. So that means that now your bishop could go to f3, right? So you could
Yeah.
hit that knight a couple times.
Uh-huh.
And also, no, Andrew, I will not be streaming the tournament. Thanks for the question. I may do that on Friday. Um, and queen goes to e2, and now Ricardo just goes ahead, starts his pawn storm, right? a5.
Yeah. So a5. So actually, the idea of queen e2 is instead of going for the pawn storm, I want to target this weak d6 pawn. Um, so like we mentioned earlier, right? If he can't take because the knight on d5 would be a very good outpost.
Mm-hmm.
So my idea is that okay, I'm gonna play queen e2, play queen d2, and double up on the d6 pawn. So threatening to win that pawn basically.
Ah, very good, very good. So that's your idea. I think as I said, when you played queen e2, I was expecting bishop f3, but this is a very nice idea. A very nice idea. All right. So knight b6, and then dx c6, and then knight c4. So he's defending his d6 pawn while threatening your queen. So that
Yeah.
seems to work.
hmm So yeah, like his idea is in between move knight c4, and it defends d6. So it looks like he can take c6 without any problems now.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where like the situation starts, right? So like once he plays knight c4, so this is just a lesson, like you shouldn't like discard moves entirely, right? Because okay, it looks like your queen's attacked, you should only be able to move your queen, right? But no, there's always in between moves. So
Got to look at your checks, captures, and threats, right, Kevin?
yep.
Yep. So you're under fire. Don't panic. Analyze your checks, captures, threats. Kevin plays a threat, knight d5, threatening
Yes.
black's queen in return.
Right. So knight d5. If black takes my queen, then I take his queen,
Mm-hmm.
and so knight takes d2, knight takes c7,
Mm-hmm.
and okay, let's say like rook c8, rook a8, sorry.
Okay. Saving the rook.
Yeah, and after another in between move, c takes b7,
Oh, very nice.
rook takes c7,
Uh-huh.
rook takes d2, rook takes b7, and then finally rook takes b6. So here I think I'm up.
Yeah,
Or two pawns, actually.
and you finally get that d6 pawn. So your whole maneuver was successful. All right, let's back up. And just so you know, Kevin, we need to kind of finish this up in about 5 minutes.
Okay. All right, so knight d5. So because of that, black's queen has to move away, queen d8.
Uh-huh.
And then another in-between move, so c7. So this time I'm attacking the queen with my pawn.
Beautiful. And he's got to be very careful here, because if he plays queen c8, you got the big royal fork. So he plays queen to d7.
Right.
But now you have another fork.
Right. So now knight b6.
Mm-hmm.
So like 3 in-between moves in a row. So knight b6.
Wow. And then he needs to take, because that's a big fork. And now your bishop's supporting your deep passed pawn. And you have 2 attackers on the backward pawn on d6. Wow. Very nice. Very nice. All right. So rook a6, threatening the bishop.
Yep. And then just queen d6.
Queen d6 defends the bishop. It is putting it in the same path as your opponent's rook. But if your opponent takes, then your rook's up there. And that's no problem, because you could always back the bishop out of the way, like to c5, and defend your rook. It's a pin that's easily dealt with. Black plays queen b5 for that reason. And now you've got another tactic, right, Kevin?
Yep.
And this is a skewer. So bishop f1, threatening the queen. The queen obviously is supposed to move, but then the rook is exposed. But wait, can't the queen just take on b6? Queen takes b6, yep.
Queen takes b6, bishop a6,
Mm-hmm.
queen a6, queen a6, b a6. So the point is that, okay, like ignoring our pawn on c7, like tactically this would be good for black because 2 minor pieces is normally better than the rook.
Yes.
But basically the idea is that just in this position we can play rook d8, which is just game over.
Yeah. And that's what happens. Now let's look at one other possible continuation real fast. And where was it? So it was after queen takes b6, bishop takes a6, and then if he plays queen takes d6 here, that doesn't work either, because simply you just play rook takes d6, and it's the same thing, right? Pawn takes,
yeah,
and then you still have rook d8. But just want to be thorough. Make sure we explain all of that. Kevin, real fast, it just occurred to me. Let me open up a new analysis board. I just looked at my notes, and I just noticed, hey, Kevin was going to show us a really cool trap real fast. All right, Kevin, call out the moves for that trap with the queen on h6.
Okay, so I don't remember the exact moves, but I'll just go by like the previous game. So let's say e4, c5, knight c3, knight c6, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, let's say d3, e6.
Okay.
Bishop e3. Okay, and then let's say here instead of what my opponent did, let's say he plays knight g e7.
Okay.
So same idea, let's say queen d2. Okay, castle. Bishop h6. And here the idea is that black actually takes on h6.
Usually they don't, because it's inviting the queen to come to the party with the king. Okay.
And queen takes h6. And here black's idea is f6. So black plays f6 here.
Okay.
And the point is that if I go for the same idea, let's say h4, here black plays king to h8. And if h5, black has this move g5. So this creates a cage on the queen.
Wow. Wow. The queen has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a fun line, and a fun place to finish. Yeah. Half of chess is improving your own pieces, and half of chess is taking the good squares away from your opponent's pieces. And white's most powerful piece is a prisoner in black's camp. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. And there's a whole bunch of links to your to Mission 360 on Daily Chess Musings. But it is Mission 360 for you. Now, is that just the number 4 and the letter U?
The website is Mission 360, and you spell out four, so FOR.
Okay.
FOR, and then U with just the letter U, not
All
letter
right.
U. But just,
So it's Mission 360 FOR U,
yeah.
just the letter, .org. Students, everybody who's in the camp, you guys need to go to chess.com and get in your tournament because it starts at noon. I'll go ahead and throw another link to Mission 360, and you definitely want to check it out because Kevin's got some of his own summer camps he's going to be doing with Eric Lee. You should sign up if you can. If you're available, it is worthwhile and something you definitely should do. And he's also going to be teaching some computer programming classes. Kevin, this was so much fun, man. We'll have to do this again soon. Thank you so much. Those were just a wonderful presentation. Excellent choice of games. Lots of fun. You have a great day, my friend.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.